Namo Buddhaya. The Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram, the large sutra on perfect wisdom, the chapter 77th, the cognition of the perfect purity of the Buddha feeling. Subhuti. What is the Bodhisattva's path, having stood wherein he should put on his kind of armour? The Lord. The 6 perfections, etc., to the 18 special Buddha dharmas. Moreover, all dharmas are the Bodhisattva's path. What do you think, Subhuti? Is there any dharma in which the Bodhisattva should not be trained and yet win full enlightenment? There is no dharma in which he should not be trained, because untrained in each and every dharma, Bodhisattva is not capable of attaining the knowledge of all modes. Subhuti. If all dharmas are empty, how can a Bodhisattva train in them? Does he not form discursive ideas about something which is without them, if he thinks that there are so many of these and not of those, these dharmas are worldly or supramundane, with or without outflows, conditioned, unconditioned, dharmas of the common people, etc., to dharmas of Arhats, Pratyekabuddhas, or Buddhas. The Lord, so it is, Subhuti, so it is. All dharmas are empty. If again all dharmas were not empty, then the Bodhisattva could not fully know the supreme enlightenment. But because all dharmas are empty, therefore the Bodhisattva does fully know the supreme enlightenment. Moreover, Subhuti, when you say, if all dharmas are empty, how does the Bodhisattva effect a differentiation of dharmas? To the effect that there are so many of these and not of those, etc. There are the dharmas of the common people, etc. to the dharmas of Arhats, Pratyekabuddhas, or Buddhas. It is thus possible that those beings might cognize that all dharmas are empty. If they did so, that Bodhisattva would not reach the knowledge of all modes with regard to all dharmas, but because they do not cognize that all dharmas are empty, therefore the Bodhisattva, having fully known the supreme enlightenment, having noted the distinctive differentiation of all dharmas, demonstrate dharma to beings. The forsaking of all inclinations. There, the Bodhisattva who courses in the path to enlightenment should first of all consider that there is therein not any dharma which could be apprehended in its own being, except by way of the karma formations. And then he thus considers the own being of all dharmas. He doesn't settle down in any dharma whatsoever, be it the perfections, etc., to the supreme enlightenment. And why? Because through their own being all dharmas are empty, and emptiness cannot settle down in emptiness. The very emptiness to begin with cannot be apprehended, how much less he who can settle down in emptiness. It is thus that a Bodhisattva dwells without having settled down in any dharma. Having stood in this training, he surveys all the practices in which beings course, asks himself wherein they do course, and thinks to himself that they course in season on that which is not. And the Bodhisattva further reflects that, well freed, surely, all those beings from season on that which is not. Thereupon, through skill and means, having stood in the perfection of wisdom, he admonishes them as follows: May you beings give gifts, and then you will have an abundance of all that you need. But do not put your minds to that which you need, because where within it there is no core. And so he admonishes them in morality. May you beings guard morality, but do not put your minds to that morality, for within it there is no core. And so for the other virtues, up to the dharmas of a Buddha, when he thus instructs and admonishes, he courses in the path to enlightenment, but doesn't settle down anywhere. And why? Because all dharmas are unfit to settle down in. For they have no own being in which one could settle down, on account of the fact that their own being consists of emptiness. In consequence, the Bodhisattva who courses in the path to enlightenment doesn't abide anywhere. By way of abiding nowhere, he courses in the 6 perfections, but doesn't abide in them. He enters on the trances, but doesn't abide in them. And why? Because the trance is empty of itself, and also he who enters on it is empty, and also the modes through which he enters are empty, and so on up to the enlightenment of a Pratyekabuddha. Subhuti. For what reason does he not abide therein, the Lord? For 2 reasons. Which 2? The first, in which he could abide, have no own being, nor has that by which he could abide, or he who could abide. Nor is he easily contented, but he thinks to himself, not should I not attain the fruit of a stream, but I should not stand still at that point, etc. 2. I should not rest until I have won the supreme enlightenment. And why? Because from the first thought of enlightenment onwards, I have not acquired any thought which lies outside the supreme enlightenment. And why? Because I have not even from the first stage onwards produced any thought which lies outside the supreme enlightenment, and so up to the 10th stage, etc., to when he has entered on a bodhisattva special mode of salvation, he has never produced any thought which lies outside the supreme enlightenment. As with an undistracted mind, the bodhisattva heroically advances by way of body, voice, and mind. He never does so without reference to this thought of enlightenment. It is that the bodhisattva, having stood in the thought of enlightenment, produces the path to enlightenment with an undistracted mind. With an undistracted mind. Subhuti. If, O Lord, all dharmas are unproduced, how does the bodhisattva produce the path to enlightenment? The Lord. So it is, Subhuti. So it is, all dharmas are unproduced. For it is not so that all dharmas are unproduced for those who do not affect any karma formations. Subhuti. It is not so, O Lord, that whether Tathagatas are produced or whether Tathagatas are produced or whether they are not produced, just established in this fixed dharmic order of dharmas. The Lord. So it is, Subhuti, so it is. Whether the Tathagatas are produced or not, just established in this fixed dharmic order of dharmas, but for the sake of those who do not cognize this fixed order of dharmas, the bodhisattva produces the path to enlightenment by which he frees beings from samsara, the attainment of full enlightenment. Subhuti. Is then enlightenment attained by the path which is produced? The Lord. Note so, Subhuti. Subhuti. It is then attained by a path which is not produced. The Lord. Not so, Subhuti. Subhuti. Is it then attained by a path which is both produced and non-produced? The Lord. Not so, Subhuti. Subhuti. Is it then produced by a path which is neither produced nor non-produced? The Lord. Not so, Subhuti. Subhuti. How then is enlightenment attained? The Lord. Enlightenment is attained neither through the path nor through a non-path. Does enlightenment is the path? Does the path is enlightenment? Subhuti. If just enlightenment is the path, and if just the path is enlightenment, then the bodhisattva has already attained enlightenment. How then can a Tathagata be one who is recognized by the 32 marks of a Superman, the 10 powers of a Tathagata, the 4 grounds of self-confidence, the 4 analytical knowledges, etc., to the 18 special Buddha dharmas? Lord, what do you think, Subhuti? Does the Buddha attain enlightenment? Subhuti. No, Lord, he doesn't. Just the Buddha is enlightened. Does enlighten is the Buddha? Lord. As to what Subhuti has said, then the bodhisattva has already attained enlightenment. Here, a bodhisattva, after he has fulfilled the 6 professions, etc., to the 18 special Buddha dharmas, will, through the adamantine concentration by wisdom which is conjoined with one single thought moment, fully know the supreme enlightenment. It is then that he is recognized as a Tathagata, as one who sees all and has fully sovereignty over all dharmas. The purity of the Dharma field, the purity of the Buddha field. Subhuti. How does the Bodhisattva purify the Buddha field? The Lord. Here in the Bodhisattva, from the first thought of enlightenment onwards, cleanses away all wickedness of body, speech, and mind, on the part of himself and of others. Through their being perfectly pure, he purifies the Buddha field. Subhuti. What is the Bodhisattva's wickedness of body, speech, and mind? The Lord. Unwholesome bodily action, taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct, and is his wickedness of the body. That is wickedness of the body. Unwholesome verbal action, false speech, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous talk. That is his wickedness of speech. Unwholesome mental action, covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. That is his wickedness of mind. Moreover, any thought of meanness is for a bodhisattva wickedness of mind. And so is any thought of immorality, anger, indolence, distraction, unconcentratedness or stupidity. Moreover, in immorality that is not perfectly pure, that is wickedness of four Bodhisattva. And so it is to be deprived of the four applications of mindfulness, etc., to the wishless concentration, the realization of the fruit of a stream winner when accompanied by the longing for it, etc., to the realization of the enlightenment of a Pratyekabuddha when accompanied by the longing for it, the notion of the five skandhas, the 12 sense fields, and the 18 elements, the notions of woman, man, of the triple world, of wholesome and unwholesome, etc., the notion of the conditional and of the unconditioned, that also is wickedness of body, speech, and mind. In consequence, the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom abandons all those kinds of wickedness, and then he himself gives gifts and also encourages others to give in. He gives food to the hungry, etc., to anything that may be useful, and also others he encourages to give anything that may be useful and establish them in giving these things. When he has made the result in wholesome roots, common to all beings, he dedicates it to the purification of the Buddha field. And so with morality, etc., to wisdom, he himself perfects the great Trichili which is made of 7 jewels, and then gives it as a gift to the triple jewel. And he thinks to himself, may I through that wholesome root have a Buddha field made of the 7 treasures. Moreover, Bodhisattva plays heavenly musical instruments in honor of the Buddhas or their shrines, and he thinks to himself that as a result of that wholesome root, may I constantly and always have musical instruments which make heavenly and charming sounds. Moreover, the Bodhisattva fills the great Trichili with heavenly perfumes and gives them to the Buddhas or their shrines. And he thinks to himself, through this wholesome root, may my Buddha field emit heavenly scents. Moreover, the Bodhisattva gives the most excellent foods to the Tathagatas of their disciples, and he thinks to himself, as a result of this wholesome root, may there occur the most excellent foods for the community of my disciples and my Buddha field, when I have known the supreme enlightenment. Moreover, the Bodhisattva gives heavenly ointments to the Tathagatas or to their shrines. And he thinks to himself, as a result of this wholesome root, may there occur in my Buddha field, when I have known the supreme enlightenment, heavenly touchables to all beings. Moreover, the Bodhisattva thinks to himself, may I by my good intentions alone bestow upon the Buddhas and Lords, their disciples, and all beings agreeable sense pleasures on the 5 kinds. And when he has had this idea, he thinks to himself, as a result of this wholesome root, when I have known the supreme enlightenment and that Buddha field, the 5-fold agreeable sense pleasures will be manifested to the whole community of the disciples and of all beings just as a result of their wishing for them. Moreover, the Bodhisattva gives the 5-fold sense pleasures as a gift to the Buddhas and their disciples together with all beings. Moreover, the Bodhisattva, who courses in the perfection of wisdom, thinks as follows. Now that I have myself entered on the 4 trances, the 4 unlimited, etc., may I also introduce other beings to them. When I have won the supreme enlightenment, may all beings not be deprived of the 4 trances, etc., to the 37 dharmas which act as wings to enlightenment. It is thus that the Bodhisattva purifies the Buddha field. He doesn't know the supreme enlightenment until all those intentions are fulfilled. He himself becomes endowed with all wholesome roots, and he also causes all beings to be endowed with wholesome roots. His own body becomes handsome, and the bodies also of those beings who he has matured become handsome, beautiful to behold, and graceful with the help of his merit. It is thus that the Bodhisattva purifies the Buddha field in such a way that there is no longer even the concept of the 3 states of woe, of the false views, of greed, hate, and delusion, of woman and men, the 2 vehicles, impermanence, ill, and not self, a recipient, I-making and mind-making, latent biases and obsessions, the perverted views of the differentiation between the various fruits, but there is proclamation of the concentrations on emptiness, the silence, and the wishless. And when the wind stirs the branches of the trees, those beings hear an admonition to renounce both their inward and outward properties. From all inward and outward dharmas, there issues the message that this is emptiness, silence, and wishless. That is non-production and non-stopping. Just as the own being of these dharmas is, so the verse express it, says that all dharmas are empty of all dharmas. Whether the Tathagatas are produced or not, all dharmas are empty of all dharmas. And what is empty therein? There is no sign, and it is also wishless. This is the kind of demonstration of Dharma which will emerge. Night and day, this kind of demonstration of Dharma will emerge in that Buddha field when he has fully known the supreme enlightenment to those who stand, sit, lie down, or walk alone. And all the Buddhas and Lords in the world system in the 10 directions speak in praise of this Tathagata. And those who will hear his name, they will also be definitely destined for the supreme enlightenment. And none of the beings to whom the Tathagata, who has won the supreme enlightenment, teaches the Dharma, has any uncertainty as to whether this is the Dharma and that is not the Dharma, and why. In the dharmic nature of all dharmas, there is no non-dharma, and all of it is Dharma. But those beings who are possessed by unwholesome roots, who have not planted wholesome roots under the Buddhas or their disciples, or who have been taken hold of by bad spiritual teachers, they cling to the false view of self, etc. They cling to all false views. They take their stance on the extremes, on annihilation or eternity. Since by wrong conception they formed the notion of fully enlightened Buddhas with regard to those who are not fully enlightened Buddhas, and with regard to the fully enlightened Buddhas, they form the notion that they are not fully enlightened Buddhas. They speak of what is not the Dharma as if it were the Dharma, and they speak of Dharma as if it were not the Dharma. They reject the Dharma, and in consequence, when their body has broken up, they will, after their death, fall into a state of war and bad destiny and be reborn in the hells. And the Buddhas and Lords, after they have known the supreme enlightenment, will liberate those beings who are included in samsara from both their evil places of rebirth and from their false views. Thereafter, they will establish them in the group of those whose destiny is not fixed either way. And after that, they will again be born in the states of war. It is that the Bodhisattva purifies the Buddha field, with the result that beings will find no home in anything worldly or supramundane dharmas with or without outflows, conditioned or unconditioned, dharmas until they all become definitely destined for the supreme enlightenment. This is the end of 77th chapter of the large Sutra on Perfect Wisdom, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram.